Hi, everyone. Good morning, Katie. Good morning, everyone. So while you guys still have a couple more minutes, I want you guys to go ahead and grab, give me 1 second. Do you need to go? Okay. I want you guys to go and grab pen and paper because you're going to be taking lots of notes. And then I also want you guys to grab a cup of water because we're going to be here for an hour. It's going to be a while. And then once you guys have everything you ready, I want you guys to turn your phone on silence, turn it off if you can, lock your child outside the door because you want to have no distraction because we're going to have to go through a lot of material in a very short period of time. I wish that I have like 2-3 hours with you guys, but I only have 1 hour. So what we're going to do is that we're going to do around 40 to 45 minutes of actual contents and information that I'll be sharing with you guys. And then we're going to do a little Q&A because last year when we did it, I realized that the Q&A was the part that everyone looked forward to the most. So I left just enough time this year for you guys to do Q&A. Obviously, it won't end exactly at 12. If you want it to stay behind a little bit and you have more questions, feel free to. But majority of the content is going to get through in the first 45 minutes, and then we do Q&A after. Okay? So everyone have your notebook, have your pen, and you have everything that you need, have your water. Let's get started. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen with you guys because I'm gonna share with you guys a little PowerPoint that's gonna get us through this. Okay, so I wanted to double check with you guys and see if everyone can see. Let's see. Just want to make sure. All right. So during this period of time, I'm not going to be able to watch the screen. So I'm not going to be able to read the question. And I'm actually going to get Phil to hop on to the webinar as well. So if you guys have any questions that he can directly answer immediately, he's going to answer those questions. And if he can't answer the question, he's going to be collecting, just kind of like monitoring, because like I said, as I'm going, I won't be able to see your chat. So let's get started, guys. Welcome back. If this is your second time to our webinar, welcome, because this year in this webinar, we're going to refresh everything that you've learned last year, but we're also going to include some new information, mainly around allergies and sensitivities. And then for those of you who are attending for the very first time, welcome. And this is a session where I'm going to be sharing with you guys everything that I've ever learned about adhesive. So sit tight. Now let's get this started. All right, today's agenda, we're going to cover some basic science of adhesive. We're going to talk about what's in your adhesive, how does your adhesive work, and how to find your adhesive sweet spot. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. We're going to go through that and you're going to know exactly what I mean by the end of this. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time to help you guys troubleshoot your adhesive, because a lot of the time it's not the adhesive is not working, it's misusage of the adhesive, because premium adhesives are all created with similar ingredient that works the same. So today I'm going to show you guys exactly how you can troubleshoot your adhesive. Next one is I'm going to teach you guys my secret in how I rock my retention game. And I've made a checklist for you guys that you guys check yourself against to make sure that you can guarantee that, whatever 5, 6, 7 weeks retention that you can see. But obviously a lot of other factors play into it, but I will share with you everything that's in your control. And then obviously I want to finish this webinar with some fun debunking some myths, because myth is one of those things that circles around our industry. Being a very new industry, there's still a lot of beliefs in our industry that are not necessarily true anymore, with new information constantly surfacing. So we're going to do some of that debunking today. And then lastly, if you guys stay all the way to the end, I have an exclusive offer discount for you guys. As you guys can see in this picture, we're releasing a new adhesive, and for attending this webinar, you're going to get first dibs on some really, really special offer on this adhesive. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. The best way to start this webinar is to start with a little story time. So let's flash back to 2016 Cheryl in September. I got my first certificate and I am riding the high because let me tell you, coming from an art background and slaying my first volume set or classic set, honestly, I thought that like I was invincible. And I was slowly building up my clientele until early November. I got this first message, a message that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. It's, hey Cheryl, I love my lashes, but half of them have fell off already. It's been 3 days. Is that normal? Did you just get flashback? Trust me, I still get like nightmares about it. Let's just say that's the first of many, many messages to come, because in the following month and a half, I proceed to lose all of my clients that I built so hard on building. Honestly, still blows my mind till today why my last client stayed with me, and she stayed with me for until the very last day that I was still a service provider. So that's when the reason why I had this experience is because my lashes just won't last on my client. That's when I went under my blanket, bawled my eyes out, bought a one-way ticket to Hong Kong to visit my best friend, and I thought, that's it. I quit. I'm done. But the problem is, I don't quit easily. I don't go down with a fight so easily. So I came back and I say, you know what? I'm not just going to give up without figuring out and solving why my retention sucked. And then since then, I've been diving down this deep rabbit hole, lash nurse style, to learn everything I can about adhesive. So I went from this girl who lost 95% of her clientele to now being this person who is a lash artist who lashed most Toronto lash artists because my retention was amazing. So today's webinar is where I'm going to share with you guys all of my secrets and my step-to-step process and how I was able to achieve those retention. And that all comes from a place of understanding. And so I scratched out everything that I learned about adhesive, and I asked myself a very, very simple question, is that what is our adhesive? What's in it? The reason why today I'm going to share with a little bit of the oh so boring science with you, because I don't want to bore you to death, is because I want to teach you at least having a basic understanding of what's in your adhesive and also how to read your label so that you can go about deciding whether or not this adhesive is right for you and what adhesive you should get. Okay, so there are 3 main ingredients in adhesive. And these are the 3 main ingredients that exist in almost every single adhesive. So you have cyanoacrylate, you have your polymethyl methacrylate, so that's the PMMA at the back of the bottle, and then you have your carbon black if you have a black adhesive. There are here occasionally here and there have other additives in adhesive, but at UA, I don't really believe in additives. So our adhesives are pretty pure with no other additives. So today we're just going to focus on the 2 main ingredients that really matters to you. So ingredient number 1 is cyanoacrylate. That was hell of a mouthful. So as you need to know that cyanoacrylate is also commonly known as the crazy glue that we're using. Yep, you heard right, crazy glue. And this is this is the ingredient in your adhesive that bonds your natural lash to your extensions. And the 3 common type of cyanoacrylate you will see, well, the first 2 are way more common. There are methylcyanoacrylate, which is stronger and it's industrial grade, and they're usually used in metal. So they're more rigid and they sometimes can be less comfortable to wear. And that's when your adhesive dries a little bit crispy. Have you guys ever like seen that? Like where it dries a little bit crispy? That's the type of cyanoacrylate. The second type is the ethyl cyanoacrylate, and this is the type of cyanoacrylate that we mostly use in our adhesive. They're more common and they're more versatile. So they are a little bit more flexible and comfortable to wear. And then alkoxycyanoacrylate, it's another cyanoacrylate that we sometimes use in our adhesive as well because they're a little bit less fume and more flexible. The higher grade of cyanoacrylate you use, the better it's going to be for you and your client. Number 1 is the comfort of wear, and number 2 is the less fume. So it's less the toxicity level that it has. So essentially, this is the key ingredient that you need to know, now that you know how to read these in the back of the bottle, so that when you're buying an adhesive, you can at least know at what grade the cyanoacrylate is. So you have an idea of the quality of this adhesive. And as you guys know, the cyanoacrylate is something, it's a polymer. So what it means is that it hardens, it becomes solid, right? So that's why it bonds around a natural lash. And all this chemical reaction happens around 21 Celsius or 70 Fahrenheit, around 50% humidity, because it needs moisture in the air in order to cure or dry or harden the cyanoacrylate. The next ingredient we have here is the PMMA. So if cyanoacrylate is the glue that bonds your natural lash to your extension, then PMMA is the ingredient that strengthens your adhesive. So that's what gives you that, 4 to 6 weeks retention that you're looking for. And that's the other ingredient that's in it. So it hardens it. Now, raise a hand if you've asked this question before, or you've been asked this question before. What is your favorite adhesive? Because now that I show you all the ingredient list and how to read the ingredients, you're probably wondering, what's your favorite adhesive, right? If I got $1 for every time someone asks me that, your girl be rich. Let me tell you that. But I'm here to encourage you guys to stop asking this question, because this is the wrong question to ask. The right question is, what is the right adhesive for you? Because every single artist are going to use the same bottle adhesive, but differently. So therefore, ending with a slightly different result. So instead, I'm gonna share you guys the secret formula to the perfect adhesive. Ready? The perfect adhesive is the right amount of cyanoacrylate with the right amount of moisture, because as we know, it all needs moisture to dry. So your humidity and your temperature with the appropriate lash speed, that gives you the perfect adhesive. So that means the perfect adhesive for me may be a 0.5 second dry time adhesive, because I lash extremely fast and I'm in a dry environment. Where for you, maybe, or wetter environment. Maybe for you, you're a beginner, you need a slightly slower lash adhesive. So going around and ask your favorite lash idol, what's your favorite adhesive, isn't going to solve your retention issue. Okay, so remember in the agenda, we said that we're gonna go through this adhesive sweet spot. What is the sweet spot? I don't understand. A lot of people say, today I'm gonna show you guys what that means. So in every single bottle of adhesive, right, you're going to have a different sweet spot. A sweet spot is when your adhesive works so magically. Like, you just know the bond is magnetic. When you go and comb, no pop off, but you can yet lash to lash, and there's no stickies. So when you reach that spot where there's no stickies, no pop off, that magnetic pull, you're in the sweet spot, right? And that's where we want to work under, because when your adhesive is in the sweet spot, you're going to achieve the best retention. That's why sometimes, have you noticed that you're using the same bottle adhesive in the same day, but with one client, the adhesive, the retention, it's amazing. And then with another client who has very similar characteristic and everything is the same aftercare, but their retention is not as great. That is because maybe there's a small change to your environment that took your adhesive out of the sweet spot. So outside the sweet spot, we have the orange zone, what I call the optimal zone. So the optimal zone is usually when your adhesive works just fine, but they may not give you that jaw-dropping retention, right? That retention that you can rave about. Because let's be honest, we've all seen that 6-7 week retention picture and repost, but that doesn't happen every single time, because you don't necessarily hit the sweet spot every single time. So the optimal zone is the zone where usually what the manufacturer tells you. So for us, it's 30% to 60% humidity, 18 to 21 Celsius degrees. Because I'm Canadian, you guys can do the math. You figure out what the Fahrenheit is. But that's what the suppliers or manufacturer tends to tell you. And that's the optimal zone. And that means your adhesive is gonna work. Maybe it just needs slight tweaking, or maybe you don't achieve that jaw-dropping retention that you're looking for. Now, as soon as you exit outside of this optimal zone, That's when stuff gets a little dicey. Okay, as you guys can see on the right-hand side of this chart, that's when I indicated with red. That means when your adhesive is curing too quickly, or your fan will pop off when you're combing, or for those who wraps, you're unable to wrap. So what's a wrap? It's when I am a wrapper. Yep, my name is Sea Dog. Kidding. So wrapping is when you have a natural lash, right? And then the base of your fan comes around and encloses around your natural lash, a 360-degree all around your natural lash. That's what I call wrapping. When your glue is drying too fast, you're not going to be able to do that because it will immediately go here and it starts to dry already. And that's why the sweet spot is when I'm able to come in, wrap my fan, and I can let go within 3 seconds and my fan stays perfectly. That's how I knew I was in a sweet spot. As a volume lash artist, that's your best indicator. So what happens when your pop-off lash is curing too fast? That means there's too much humidity in the level, in your air. So what you want to do, what this is telling me is that it's either too hot or your humidity level is too high. That usually happens around 75 Fahrenheit, 24 Celsius, or 60% plus humidity level. You're probably wondering, what does temperature and humidity have to do with each other? Okay, I want you to imagine a pot of water that's not boiling, okay? And it's still because it's cold. As you turn up the heat and start boiling the water, small bubbles start to form, right? Because the molecules are moving faster. And then as they reach extreme heat and it's boiling, it comes to a rolling boil, lots of bubble, lots of steam, okay? That's because when temperature increases, heat, which is energy, the molecules moves really fast. Then the air tends to contain more moisture. So I want you to think when it's hot, more moisture. So hot, boiling water, more moisture, okay? So when that happens, you're going to experience all these problems. Now on the other end of the spectrum, as you can see, it's blue because this indicates that it's too cold or there's not enough moisture. That's when your adhesive doesn't cure or your fan will just collapse. You know, your pretty little fan, you apply it on the natural lash and it just closes up. Or you get stickies. And that shows me that there's not enough moisture in your air because like we said, cyanoacrylate needs the right amount of moisture in your air. Because I want you to imagine wintertime, colder, drier, your skin cracks. When you turn on the AC, it's drier because the lower the temperature is, the slower the molecule moves, the less moisture it's going to contain. I hope that all makes sense. Now that you know all of this, how do we troubleshoot? How do we make sure that we can get ourselves into the sweet spot that we want? The next step we're gonna do is we're gonna troubleshoot it. Okay, if this is you, your lashes fall out during combing, or it doesn't feel very secure, unable to wrap, or your adhesive is drying too fast. This is what happens. This tells me that there is not enough adhesive or not enough moisture in the air to cure or dry that adhesive. So step number one I want you to take before you go and do anything else is that I want you to try to pick up a little bit more glue. Because there's this common saying in the industry, don't use too much glue. Don't use too much glue. It's not healthy, it's not safe. But now our industry is overcompensating with using very little amount of glue. So if I'm not gonna dive too deep into this, but I want you, if you have time and you're curious, go and watch my YouTube video on how to dip glue correctly. And in there, I show you guys exactly how to use a scooping or spooning motion, as I call, to dip enough glue. Once you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, I can dip more glue. I'm already using a lot of glue. Then we start adjusting our environment. The first thing you can do is turn down your temperature, because that's the fastest thing to do instead of turning down your humidity. The next thing you want to do is invest in a good dehumidifier, especially you live in a city or area that has very high humidity level, like my Vancouver girls in the summertime. You want to invest in a dehumidifier to help you lower your humidity level. And then you also want to avoid draft. You don't want to sit right directly underneath any, vent or anything like that. You don't want to have direct draft coming in because that's going to help prematurely cure your adhesive. And then this one you may not know is lash away from the window. So glass tends to retain a lot of heat, okay? This is why when I use the lash and my room is pretty close to the window, I had to get a blackout curtain. So the blackout curtain can absorb a lot of the heat. It wasn't even for the light, but it was for the heat itself. So you want to lash away from the window because that usually is going to give you a lot of heat. And then you also want to, if you want to need a really, really quick solution because you're in lashing mode and everything just not working, is that you can try to put a silica packet, because the purpose of a silica packet is to absorb moisture, near your glue dot so that it can slow down the curing process of adhesive. However, this is a temporary solution. It's going to be a bitch to try to adjust this. So what you want to do is that you want to have your environment more stable, using a more permanent solution, which is a dehumidifier, and changing your temperature and changing the setup of your room. And then lastly is that maybe you need to try a slower drying adhesive. That's why whenever people ask us, what adhesive do you recommend us to use? I always go with retention first because that's our slowest drying adhesive. If you find retention is drying too slow for you, you can always move to a different adhesive, but you can't get slower than that. And then obviously consistently working on your lash speed. As you get lashing faster and faster, you're gonna able to work with a slightly faster adhesive. Okay, so if this is you, when you're lashing and you're getting a lot of stickies, your lashes will slide or your fan will collapse, or some people call it wicker, or you having to hold on to your fan for like 3 seconds plus in order for it to stay in place, or your adhesive drying too slow, that all tells me that there is not enough moisture in the air. So step number 1 you can do is maybe try to use a little less glue. It's pretty intuitive, but if you're somebody who have a tendency of picking up too much glue, then try to use a little less glue. But if that's not your problem, then let's start adjusting our environment. The first thing you want to do is to turn up the temperature. Like we talked about, hot air, boiling water, more moisture, steam. So turn up that temperature. It's going to immediately help the molecules in the air move a little faster to bring in a little bit more humidity. Next thing you want to do is invest in a good humidifier. So just remember, the bigger the space you have, the heavier duty a humidifier you would need. If you're operating in a 200 square feet space, little room, a 12-liter humidifier should be fine. But if you're working in a 500 square feet room or really, really big commercial space, then you're going to need a heavy-duty humidifier. And those, I had a humidifier that was 60-liter. That thing was a monster, okay? And it also sounds like a whisper machine or like white noise, and really helped put my client to sleep. And then next, it's obviously avoid draft. As we said, draft is not going to be good for your adhesive regardless if it's drying too fast or too slow. And the next thing you want to do, if you need an immediate solution because you're just having such a hard time to bring up the humidity, is to put a drop of water right next to your glue dot. But remember, if you're doing this, you're going to have to change that glue dot very often. Going from a 15 minutes change, you might have to go to a every 10-minute interval change of your adhesive, because that glue dot is going to start polymerizing that drop of adhesive already with that water. So the next thing you can do is also putting, a wet lint-free pad under your client's eyes. But like I said before, these are temporary solutions because they're not going to be comfortable for your clients in the long run to feel like there's something wet in their eyes. So try your best to adjust your environment first and get to a stabilized environment. This is more of like, in the pinch that you need an immediate solution. This is what's going to work. And then a quick little tip for you guys, a hack that I found is that if you get yourself a smart plug and then plug your humidifier into your smart plug and then use your phone, all smart plug comes with an app on their phone, and turn on that plug 2 hours prior to your first appointment, because that's usually the amount of time that I find in my experience it takes to really, bring up the humidity of a room. It's 2 hours prior to your appointment. So just get a smart plug, set that timer, and then have your humidity and your environment level pretty consistent. All right, so let's see. Next one is, now a lot of you are probably thinking, well, why can't I just stick to what my hydrometer says? Let's just say my hydrometer is the reason why I lost 95% of my clients, because number one, your hydrometer is never calibrated. So a lot of times they are inaccurate. So if you go to your, if you buy 3 hygrometer right now off Amazon and put them in the exact same spot, every single day, they're gonna read a different number. So for me, I found out later in my career that I lived in a concrete wall. So the moisture was unable to come in. In the wintertime, I was practically lashing in 10% humidity. So because of that reason, I want you to ditch your hygrometer and stop relying it so heavily on it. All you need to do is every day put it in the same spot and use it as a metrics for you to see what you're doing. But what you want to do is what I do every appointment, 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of my appointment, I'm taking that time to talk to my adhesive. I know, sounds crazy, but I ask my adhesive, what do you want? I'm observing, I'm intentional. I'm watching the way my adhesive behave and then making appropriate adjustment accordingly. It's just, that means even if my humidity level says it's 50 and my adhesive is just not drying fast enough and my fan is collapsing, I'm going to turn up that humidity despite what my hygrometer says, because my adhesive is telling me I need more moisture to dry. So all I'm doing is that I am not looking at my hygrometer. I'm making sure I achieve that perfect sweet spot that I'm looking for. Then I will look at my hygrometer and see what it says, mark it down, and tomorrow I want to start at a similar level. But still, I'm going to the same step of first observing, seeing if my adhesive is behaving well, then if it's not, making the adjustment necessary, because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I didn't say that. My boy Albert Einstein said that. So let's see. Now that we gone through all of this, I promised you guys that I created a retention checklist for you guys. So this list, if you check yourself against this list, I can guarantee you that your retention will no longer be a mystery. You can pretty much have a very good prediction of the outcome of your retention every single time. So number 1 is to start with squeaky clean lashes. I can't stress this enough. You are attaching a surface to another surface. So natural lash to an extension. In between, all you need is your adhesive, nothing else. And you guys might already know this, that all of our hair naturally has pores in it. So the follicle and the cuticle of our hair. And because of that, those cuticle gets built up and covered up with dirt and debris. This is why we need to give it a really, really clean, a good cleanse by using a cleanser like Prolong or something like this. And then using lashes, that's a little bit more porous as well. So I've looked at under a microscope and I've found the most porous fiber that I can out there to create our lashes. Because when you have pores in your natural lash and the pores in your extension, when you attach them coming together, they become an interlocking mechanism. That is going to increase your retention. Whereas if there's dirt in between, and if you smooth out the surface of your lashes and your natural lash, and there's no pores in your extension fiber, then with the glue, all you're doing is this. What's going to be more secure, this or this? Next thing you know is to get that perfect environment that we're looking for your adhesive to pick up, for your adhesive and pick up amount and lash speed, so that you had your sweet spot every single time. And after that, you want to achieve seamless attachment, because no matter how much adhesive you're using, what adhesive you're using, unicorn adhesive, but if there's a gap, between your attachments. So let's see. If there's a gap, like this is your extension, this is your natural lash, even the tiniest little gap, it's gonna build up debris, dirt, everything. And as time goes on, they're gonna build bigger and bigger and they're gonna pop off. So having a seamless, absolutely seamless attachment with a 2 to 3 millimeter, it's very important. So if you wanna know more, again, I have a YouTube video on that. And then the next one, as we talked about, is use enough adhesive. Don't be afraid to just use enough adhesive, especially for those of you who crystallizes or pro make your fan. Because you're pro making your fan, when your adhesive dry, that adhesive is now a smooth surface, has no porous, has no divots. And then, so when it comes to attaching to your natural lash, you need to pick up a little bit more adhesive to create that retention. So a lot of people usually complain that like, oh, I don't like crystallizing. I was one of those because, you know, the retentions aren't as great. It's because you're probably not using enough adhesive. And next one is proper storage. You want to store your adhesive in an airtight, moisture-free, heat-free environment. So I always tell this joke. What's the similarity between a vampire and a bottle of adhesive? They're both afraid of the sun. Okay. Nobody's laughing with me. I just realized I'm just laughing by myself. Anyways, but just making sure that your adhesive stay away from the light, stay away from the heat, because your adhesive lives the happiest in the environment of 3 degrees Celsius. So that's in your fridge. If you're on an open adhesive. Once it's open, then it's only good for about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how often you open your adhesive. Now, if you're using your adhesive fresh, the less moisture and the less air you introduce it to it, the better it is. And that's why at Untamed, like we actually don't shake our adhesive. If you're buying a fresh bottle of adhesive and you're using it right away, for us, I can't say that for every single brand because I don't know the process that goes behind developing every other adhesive. But with our adhesive, because they are emulsified already in a lab, so when you're dropping a drop of adhesive, it should not separate if you're using a fresh bottle. So that's why most of our artists don't shake their adhesive at all. Over shaking your adhesive is actually gonna get your bottle clogged, and that is super annoying. All you need to do is to wipe off the excess, and that's it. Lastly, is to be decisive. Don't doubt yourself. If you need a little bit of time to assess this natural lash and decide where you're gonna place it, assess it before you dip your adhesive. Because once your lash is dipped in adhesive, it's ready to be applied. Because these adhesive, think about it, their dry time are half a second, 1 second, 1.5 seconds. So as you are dipping in the adhesive and you're coming in and you're pausing here to decide, immediately, that's already half a second. That glue, it's already prematurely curing. So that's why you have to be very decisive. If you find yourself that usually on your left side, your retentions are worse, it's very possible that because the angles are very awkward for you, that you're taking your time to adjust and then you come in and pause, because I've observed this a lot of my students, is that they would come in, pause, observe, and that adhesive is already drying. So get yourself practicing. If you're lashing on the left eye, try to pick up a little bit more adhesive. And then without saying it's aftercare, make sure it's your job to educate your client. But in my opinion, this might be an unpopular one, but if you did your job at washing your lashes before it starts, you make sure your environment's in the sweet spot and you create that seamless attachment, your client should be able to get the same retention regardless, unless of hormonal issue. So for me personally, in the last 2 weeks, I haven't shed a single lash that doesn't have a natural lash attached to it. And I am rough with my lashes. Man, I tell you, like I do not take care of my lashes. So your client, if with the right adhesive, with the right environment, with the right attachment, the aftercare part is really just for hygienic reasons and cleanliness reason. Okay, so now we're gonna talk a little bit about sensitivity and allergy. I don't wanna dive too deep into this, but I want to touch on it because personally, I am a victim of being allergic to eyelash extensions. And I think that there's a lot of confusions around this topic. But I want to preface it first of all, and you should do this with your clients over and over. I'm not a medical specialist. I'm not a doctor. Do not try to play a doctor. It's not your job to diagnose your client. Okay? Legality will be the death of your business. You never want to put yourself at risk in a position where you have to, deal with laws and legal issues and legal battles. So never ever try to diagnose your clients. If your client comes to you with any symptoms, send them to a professional, send them to a doctor. But what you can do is aid your client with a little bit more information so that when they go to the doctor, they know what to say. So when it comes to sensitivity, those are the symptoms that usually dry eyes, redness, slight itchiness, but they're non-immune response. So that means they are not your body attacking something. But when it comes to allergy, they are an immune response. And when it comes to eyelash extensions, most of the allergy that happens, it's a contact allergy. So there's ingested allergy, contact allergy, and inhaled allergy. So when your client's having an allergic reaction, tell your client to go to the doctor and tell the doctor that I think I might have contact dermatitis. And that's what it is. And the doctor can then prescribe the correct steroids for them if they wanted to use it to apply. Now, when you're getting allergy, most of the time, clients, you need to first identify. So it's not our job to diagnose, but it is our job to help client identify what you're using and what they could possibly be allergic to. So sometimes what a client's allergic or sensitive to is not just adhesive, but the fiber of the lashes or the tape, the primer, the cleanser, all of these different things. So but a lot of the time for personally, what I'm allergic to is I'm allergic to the adhesive, but not cyanoacrylate itself, because what I'm allergic to is the byproduct of the adhesive. So the vapor and the solvent as the adhesive is drying. So when you have a contact dermatitis, contact allergy, usually it will completely go away in 7 to 10 days. And then the severe symptom will subside in 48 to 72 hours. So if your client do absolutely nothing, everything is gonna be fine in 7 to 10 days. And then there's severe swelling and itching, it's gonna go away in 48 to 72 hours. But if they decided to continue to get extension, make sure that you get them to sign a consent form, protect yourself and protect your client, and ask them to talk to a professional, a medical professional. And then when they get a steroid, if they insist on getting it, which I personally do, two things you can do. One is limit the appointment time and make it lower so that they're not exposed to the byproduct for as long. So my appointment times are usually 1 hour max. The next thing is that they can put on the steroids that's prescribed by a doctor. Don't tell them to go up to the pharmacy and get the over-the-counter, there's the less than 2%, this and that. Absolutely not, because steroids for eyes are very, very specific type of steroids. They're called dexamethasone, and they're only prescribed by the doctor. So they have to go to the doctor to get this. And with this, they should be able to continue to get eyelash extensions. I can go on and on about this forever, but I want to make sure that you guys just have a basic understanding. And one of those things is that with allergy, it's non-reversible. Once you have it, you have it. If your client's allergic to the byproduct cyanoacrylate, imagine if your client was allergic to peanuts. You're not going to try a different brand of peanuts on them. They're just allergic. So the only thing you can do is make sure they're aware of it, that it's not lethal. A contact dermatitis is never lethal. And if they choose to continue to get it, with those who doesn't have as severe symptoms, there are certain things they can do, but you're not the medical professional to give them advice. Make sense? Okay. Next one, it's also something that's very close to my heart. I don't know if any of you have experienced this in your career, is runny nose, tightness in your chest, difficulty breathing, sneezing, headache, skin rash, all the lists that I have. Most of the time, it's a prolonged flu-like symptom. For me, if I lash a few days in a row, that's it for me. I am going to be sneezing for the next 2 weeks and runny nose for the next 2 weeks, and it looks like I have a cold. So this is because of a long exposure to cyanoacrylate and the byproduct of it. In turn, these are the symptoms of rhinitis. So what it means is sensitivity in the nose. So the mucous membranes of your nose, it's very sensitive to the byproduct of the cyanoacrylate. That means, especially, that's why I always say that, like, don't lash in under 30% humidity level, because it's not even because it's hard to find adhesive that works well in a sub 30% humidity level, but it also because it increases the toxicity level that you're breathing in. So in the long run, it's really bad for you. So going back to what I said about my concrete wall, I found out that I was lashing in a 10% humidity level. No wonder why after 2 years of lashing, I've developed all of these symptoms. So let's talk about protection. How can you protect yourself? Number one, it's wear a mask. Please, please start wearing a mask. This is something that you want to be proactive and not reactive. Don't wait until you have all these symptoms and then start protecting yourself. Start protecting yourself now. The last thing you need to do is use a paper mask. Just like with the coronavirus, the paper mask does not protect yourself. All it does is cover your coffee breath, and that's it. You need to get at least N99 grade mask. And my recommendation is this mask called Cambridge mask, developed by the British military. And this is the highest grade mask that it's going to basically filter out the smallest molecule possible that is not a heavy gas mask as you see in the picture. That gas mask you see in the picture is something that I wear because that's the only mask that works for me. Now, when it comes to wearing masks, make sure that you're wearing a mask that covers more than your mouth. Because this, you're still breathing in all of that air. So what you need to do is that you need to wear your mask. Every single mask has a wire part. Whether that's the paper mask, they all have a hard wire part, the top part. I want you to stretch it out, put it around your nose, and frame it around your nose. Because even if it's covered like this, all this gap, all the vapors and the solvents are still getting through. So make sure you protect yourself by wearing the mask correctly as well. The next thing is filter your air. I can't stress this enough, is that you need to work in a well-ventilated area. So if you're a lash artist who's going out to look for your own studio space, or you're working in a salon, that should be on your priority list. It's how well ventilated this area and this space is, you know, because if it's not ventilated, A, it actually affects your adhesive, and B, you're breathing in all of these bad air constantly. So a humidifier, an air purifier that I really recommend, it's called Rowenta, Rowenta. It's a heavy duty air purifier that really helps you clear your air, and it makes your flu-like symptoms a little bit better. And if you can, add a carbon filter to the air purifier, or you can get a fume extractor. The only thing about fume extraction system is that sometimes because they create a draft, that they dry your adhesive too much. So I actually don't put them right next to my adhesive dot, because I find that my retention really goes down if I use a fume extractor right on top of my adhesive dot. And the last one is something that we probably think about the least, but it's the most effective for myself, is to wash your face between your client and change your work clothes when you finish. For me, I found that my flu-like symptom decreased by 50% if I, during my appointment, were able to wash my face at least after every single client. If I can, I will wash it every hour on the hour. That really, really helped to subside my symptoms. And washing your hands between your clients, because the only way for those vapor and those solvent to go away on your body, once the cyanoacrylate cure, and that's it. The only way for it to go away is use soap and water and continuously wash your hand, and then slowly they will dissipate from your skin. So remember, you guys, you are your most valuable asset. You don't get sick days, you don't get sick pay, so take care of yourself, because lash extension being a lash artist is very, very hard on your body. So you make sure that you take care of yourself, okay? All right, now we're coming to an end of all this content. I can't believe it's already been 42 minutes. This is insane, because I feel like I barely scratched the surface with you guys. But I want to leave you guys with a little fun debunking some myth, and then we take some questions, okay? So myth number one, you guys should all know by now, that you don't have to wait for 24 hours to wet your lashes, because all of our adhesive nowadays dries extremely fast. This is why they're half second, 0.5 seconds, 1 second. It allows you to lash from lash to lash. So that means every single time after 5 minutes, all of your adhesive will completely dry on your client's eyes because of how little amount you're using. Actually, by cleansing your client's lashes right after appointment, at the very minimum, just wipe down their eyes with some saline. That's really gonna help reduce the sensitivity. The next thing is patch test. Allergy works in a way where your body has to be exposed to the allergen first, and then it takes time for the next exposure for you to react sometimes. So that means you can do a patch test on someone and they will be completely fine. And when they come back and get their lashes done, they will have a full-blown reaction. So that for that reason, patch test is not very effective. But if you're thinking about changing adhesive, trying a different adhesive on your client, then you need to try at least 8 lashes on each eye, up to 8 lashes on each eye. Let them go home for the next 24 to 48 hours. And if they're gonna have a reaction, that's gonna appear in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now let's talk about removal. A lot of clients panic when they get an allergic reaction. They're like, oh my God, I need to have it taken off. And the doctor will recommend that as well. And they will put them on antibiotics because they don't know what's happening to their body. They just know their body is fighting something. But you need to explain to your client that removing your extensions requires another solvent. Because of that reason, you're actually exposing your clients to possibly more of the things that they're sensitive and allergic to. So by using a remover, it's actually going to increase the reaction and it might be worse for them. For that reason, I'm also against removal. As we talked about, contact dermatitis is something that goes away on its own within 7 days. So even if you do absolutely nothing, within 7 days, they should be fine. And the symptoms subside in 48 to 72 hours. So explain that to them and let them know that you'll be wasting your money if you, if you just get it removed, and it might be worse for you. The next one is all fans dry the same. Absolutely not true. I want you guys to know that a 6D fan, it's going to take longer time to dry as a 4D fan or as a 3D fan. That's why I always say the question of asking what's your favorite adhesive is the wrong question to ask. What if you're an artist who do 3D fans and you ask another artist who do mega volume? They're going to have complete different result using the same adhesive as you. So remember, not all fans dry the same. This one is my favorite. Formaldehyde-free adhesive, sensitive adhesive, oil-proof adhesive. All of these are marketing gimmick. First of all, manufacturers don't put formaldehyde in their adhesive. Formaldehyde is just a byproduct that creates when your cyanoacrylate cures. But the amount is so minuscule that usually aren't harmful. In our air that you're breathing in right now, especially indoor, there's always a level of formaldehyde in it. The next one is sensitive adhesive. If your client's allergic to cyanoacrylate, there is no other cyanoacrylate they're not allergic to. So there's no such thing as sensitive adhesive. And a lot of times sensitive adhesive actually use a more rigid and more harmful ingredient. Those of you who attended this webinar last year, you would know that I did this last year. I used a cyanoacrylate-free adhesive and my eyes blew up. And I was like, oh, what a great teaching opportunity. That I went against my better judgment and fell for a marketing gimmick and then paid the consequences for it because they use acrylate in it, which is a lot more rigid and harsher than any cyanoacrylate that we use. Last one is oil-proof adhesive. All cyanoacrylate cannot be dissolved by oil. Absolutely not possible. Go home, attach a lash to your hair, soak it in a bowl of oil for 2 weeks, come back to it, it wouldn't move. Soak it for a month, come back to it, it wouldn't move because cyanoacrylate needs another solvent in order to dissolve it. The reason why when your client use oily products and all that stuff, that it affects their retention, it's because the attachment wasn't good enough. So that it has a little bit of gap, a little bit of rigidness, or maybe the bond isn't as big, so that the little bit of oil caught in that gap and then just start building up, and then your lashes slide off. That's why no clients are able to remove all their lashes with coconut oil. Have you ever had that when your client's like, oh, I have 5 lashes left and I just thought I'll use coconut oil and they just come off, but they just wouldn't come off. The reason why when client uses oil to remove their lashes, it comes off, it's because they're physically rubbing the lashes and that's what's making it come off. There's one that I haven't added in here that I wanted to add on here as well is saline. It's not good to use on your eyes because it has salt in it. That's another myth I want to debunk is that saline, the salt concentration in saline is so minor that it's actually not going to affect your retention. I'm a saline girl through and through, and my retention, it's amazing. And you have to understand that saline is actually a better alternative to rinse your client's eyes after a lash shampoo than like distilled water or any other water, because saline is actually pH balanced, whereas your water and distilled waters aren't. So saline is actually a better alternative. And then lastly, as you guys already know, hygrometer is not my BFF because it literally almost killed my business. So I want you guys to stop relying so heavily on